Hi guys, it's Paula back to show you one of my junk journals that I'm going to be putting on Etsy. It'll be tonight or tomorrow, hopefully tonight. It's Little Red Riding Hood. It's a little golden book, and it measures 6 inches by 8 inches, and it has 4 signatures and 188 pages. That's a lot of pages to journal on. The spine is about 2 1/4, and it's red and white check, and it's distressed. This is a vintage book from 1965. The illustrations are just so cute, and it has the corners covered because it was a loved book, and it has the what are they called? It's the hitched fastener on it, so it will unhook and open right up. Okay, let me get it here in a position where you can see it really well. Okay, so let's get started. It is starting out here with a floral page. The colors in this book are red and pink and green, and who knows, I might have thrown some others in, and some of the pages have a vintage lace on them, but not all of them. It has coffee stained paper. It's either coffee or tea stained, and has quite a bit of ribbon in it as well. Let's start off here. This is a tea stained page. I love the way this one turned out. It has that old rusty look, and I did some stitching in some of the pages, and there's some smaller pieces of paper as well, and I tabbed with the red and white check. And here's some red vellum, which I think is really pretty. Kind of a minty green. I used some black and white check as well. Kind of keeping with the checks, and some rickrack and so forth. And this is a yellowish green grid. And I made a clip for this page. I made it out of tickets, and I'm sure you've seen these before. It's a variety of items on there, and it just clips right back onto your page, and so it's real simple to do. Okay, and I'm going to continue here. I'm try not to take too much of your time. This is a scalloped pink with little dots on it that came from my stash. Here's a flip page, which is a tuck also. And I made this tag. It's got some fabric and stitching here. And then it just has a piece of folded coffee stained paper. You flip it over, it has another pocket with some rickrack. And then it has a little card, you know, with different fabrics on it. Okay, and it's stitched on the machine as well. And I did put some images that I stamped in here. And here's another small paper with some fabric that I gathered and stitched onto the page. This one also folds in. Here's a pink and fuchsia kind of check, some rickrack, some music sheets. Here's a grid which I matted with the red, and these are little bunnies that were stamped on, and here's some stained paper again with a fabric tab right here. And this is elementary type paper. Here's some green. This is leaves that came out of my stash. I just thought the shapes were unique and different. And this is kind of woodsy looking. And on each of the signatures I put beads. This one has red beads. And here is a tuck pocket. It's a pretty big one. I put in a craft embossed with hearts. And then there's embellishment, kind of just a cluster of stuff there. And I decoupaged this tag. It has birds on it, which I thought was great for the woods. I'll turn it to the side too so you can kind of see. And it's got the coffee stain paper on the back, and I stitched it on my machine. Okay. And there's the green again. And another tack. And then here's an owl who is on the grid paper, and this is kind of a yellowish green on the checkered paper again, and some music sheets here. And little black and white checks. This is a belly band, and I have this paper clipped in here because I didn't want it to come out. It's from a very old vintage classical like music book, and it just gives you all kinds of stories about different people that created different soundtracks and stuff, not soundtracks, but music for different musicals and so forth. And I was reading through here, and lo and behold, here was Little Red Riding Hood. And so they talked about the music and so forth. Anyway, I'll let you read it should you decide you want this book. And again, that's from February 1933. And I clip that back in. This book was a lot of fun. I love the colors. They're so bright and just cheery. Here's a little bit of a scallop page again. Let me push this up. I want to make sure I'm staying in view here. I'm just going to flip through here for you. This is something I do, and I try to do in all my books. It's a tea-stained envelope. And this is not stitched. This is a faux stitch that you're seeing here. And I stamp an image on tea-stained paper. And this is burlap and the checks. This is fabric and some music sheet. And it's inked really well. If you flip it over and take the clip off, it just has like a card inside. And those are always fun because you can tuck any kind of your journaling notes in there. And then there's another vintage, vellum page right here. And this is a tuck right here. Some more cool tea stained or coffee stained. I do both. It has some really pretty florals in it. There's some black and white with red and white fabric gathered and stitched and folded in. Some more vellum. Tab on the top. Image. Some grid paper with zigzag on it with red thread. Another fold out. This book does have the original book in it as well. Here's a vintage stamp that I just put a grommet in there and hung that little mini tag. Music sheet, elementary paper with a fabric tag. Like I said, there's a lot of space to journal. And here's the middle of that signature, and it has the cream colored beads. And on this, I just did a cluster with a heart and a little flower and fabric and burlap. I thought that was cute and rustic looking. And here's a tab with the paper, elementary paper again. There's an owl, which is really cool for the woods. Tab with some flowers here. Here's a tuck band, the journaling card, and this is a little book that I made with a fold out. Just a lot of fun to make these books. Here's another tuck that says this. More journaling space. Here's a flip that I quilted with some vintage lace. Tea stain paper. Another ruffle with a fold out. And here's another one of the envelopes. It has a little journaling card inside it as well. Yeah. See if I can do this without clipping other papers this time. Excuse my arm. Okay, and here's some lined paper with zigzag stitch. Here's this little design with an owl. Oops. Floral with a tab. Red and white checks. Music sheets. Elementary paper with a tab. Lined paper. And this is actually a tag. I don't know if you can tell here, but it's red, obviously. And see the hole right there? And this is the string that's tied through the tag. I just cut out a tag, and actually this is the bottom of it over here, just a few sheets over. And this is the center of this signature with red beads. And this is the bottom of the tag with a tuck. And this is interesting. I was going through some nursery rhyme books that are very old, and I found this, so I decided to include it. This is the story of Little Red Riding Hood many, many years ago. I forgot to look up the date, but I can tell you it's very old. And so on the pages, some of the pages have tea stained paper, and the others continue the story. There's some more of it. And it's the complete story, and then there's journaling spots on the backs. And then I just sewed it to some cardstock. and I clipped it rather than, because it was several pages and I didn't want it to be a nuisance for you. Okay, tuck that back in. We'll continue on here with the elementary paper. Here's another one of the hearts. It's a little different. I didn't want to over embellish because sometimes it takes away from the whole journaling. The reason that we like these books is to journal. So here's another tag or card, I guess I should say. Here's a flip and a tuck. I watercolored these little flowers with some watercolors. They're nothing fancy, but I thought they looked cute, and some tea stain paper on the back, and it's stitched on my machine. Okay, with some crossword puzzle type design. And it just goes on and on. I mean, it's a big journal. And here is some more images. And finally, we've reached the story. It's a signature of its own. And I'm going to try to hold it up and let you look at. It was a really loved book. So you can see how I had to bind it and secure it. But the illustrations are so cute. I'm just going to kind of show you the best I can here. They're bright and cheery. I'm sorry if you can hear that. People are shooting fireworks off outside. Saying goodbye to Mother, headed to Grandmother's house. Going through the woods, through the forest. Meets the big bad wolf. He's scary looking. And he's ready to eat her goodies. The wolf makes it to Grandmother's house first. And ran her off. Put her clothes on, crawled into bed, and fooled Little Red Riding Hood. Then decided that he'd jump out of bed and try to eat her. But she surprised him and she ran away into the forest. And the lumberjack came after the wolf and rescued them both. I love this story. Straight from my childhood. On the back here, perfect sized little vintage doily. And it is really yellowed and looks 100 years old. So that's Little Red Riding Hood. I will put that in my Etsy shop and I'll link it below. But I did a little extra for this book. I don't do it every time. I made a bookmark to kind of hold your place. And I used the vintage ink on it as well. And it's got the burlap ribbon and a vintage button. I hope you enjoy it. That's Little Red Riding Hood. 1965 is the copyright. I hope you'll go over and take a look. I think I have one more little golden book in my store at this time. So, watch for my videos. Give me a thumbs up. And I really hope that you'll decide to subscribe and support my channel. Thank you guys.